Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we are reviewing The Fourth World by Cars Flowers. It's their 1997 album, and this is the last album before they changed their name to Maroon 5, and basically the sort of main one for people who specifically like this section of Maroon 5's discography. It's a decent album. It's pretty good. This is the track listing. And these are the tracks I added to my playlist, 4 out of 11, almost half here technically. This album has a lot of interesting bits, but the songs themselves don't really pull out that interesting stuff. There's basically one interesting sort of thing in every song, but overall, the songs themselves are not super interesting. The only single off this album was Soap Disco, and my favorite song here is probably Oliver, although Myself is also pretty good. This album's good songs are all pretty good, and the rest of them are not really that good at all. So it's kind of like a couple of really good, pretty good hits, and then the rest is meh. Overall, the album has a bunch of good thoughts, but with bad execution on the majority of the album, in my opinion. With their previous album, as with their previous album, I'm not surprised that they eventually, went big, but I'm also not surprised it wasn't this album that went big. This album definitely ranks higher than their first album. It's just a lot more polished, and the average quality is much increased by the simple fact that this album has a few good songs, whereas their first album kind of is not really any super good songs. In terms of Maroon 5's overall rankings, I rank this towards the bottom, but higher than Red Pill Blues and Hands All Over, because I think this album overall is just a little bit more interesting. Although Red Pill Blues and Hands All Over do have some hits, so maybe this is a bit high. I don't know. I just like sort of the theme of the theme of the fourth world sort of sound. This album does take the top spot from 1997, beating out the previous favorite, Elegantly Wasted by INXS. It was really close because both albums are kind of like a few good songs and most of it is sort of meh. But I had to give it to the Fourth World for being sort of a less prominent band. It's a little bit different if a new band does something boring than if an established band does the same. And for that reason, The Fourth World is my new favorite from 1997. Next up is the Beatles' pretty famous 1967 album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It's definitely a super defining album and super, interesting and very covered. So I'm pretty interested to see how the review turns out. Thanks and stay minty.